Hello all and welcome to another edition of What's News in Healthcare Social Media. I'm Kathy Brown of Brown Nose Social Media, and I apologize for running a little bit late, but it was worth the wait because now we have not one but two co-hosts joining me from Wheel Media. So I'd like you to say hello to first the CEO of Wheel Media, Christopher. How would you like to say hello, Christopher?
Hello, everyone. I see Andrew's here now, just
He
in
is,
time.
he is here.
If you
Um,
look closely in the back, you can see his cape. It's a little wrinkled from the flight in, but he's here now. See?
well, and Andrews, that was some introduction, so would you like to say hello as well?
Yes, my name is Andrew Horosowicz, and sorry I'm a little late. I'm running errands today. It's me and my wife's anniversary today, so
Well,
I'm
happy
going
anniversary.
crazy. Thank you.
Well, you'll learn that we only have a short period of time, so we move right along. So I'm glad that I have both of you together. This is going to be a great conversation. And for the first half hour, we're going to cover the topics very quickly. We're going to give our take on it, and then I'm going to open up the Hangout to those who are watching live and allow them to jump in and discuss the topics as well, ask questions, give their own expertise, and we'll just dive into it for another 15 minutes. So let's get started because this time flies.
Fantastic.
The first thing I want to talk about is an article that was last minute. I know, Andres, you're familiar with this because I think it was on your page as well, and that is that Google is now allowing brand pages to become Google Plus local pages. What I wanted to talk about that was the benefit and the not-so-benefit features of it. And I had this experience recently, unfortunately, before I read this article, and I was a little disappointed. Are you familiar with how this is working, either of you?
Well, I do know I got really excited, and because I've been doing some work for a law firm who they have 3 different locations, but when I first started them on Google Plus, I was still a bit confused as to how local worked even, so I had set up a brand page, just a regular page, just like they had explained in that article. I got all excited and set it up, and we have activity for them and everything and a history, but we have no address on there. So it's great to merge them together, but I'm still looking for multiple location features for a single business page, and that would be fantastic to have, but not yet.
Yes, and I'll tell you, I did this with one of my clients, and when I merged them together, I expected to have the best of both available, just visible to some degree. And I understood that it wasn't a merging of the two, but I thought maybe they would co-populate. And what happened was the Google Plus profile lost its branding page, the actual visual of it. And I can't find a way to get back that brand, that picture that was so attractive on the Google Plus profile. So I'm really disappointed with having that blue box be the new logo for the company. Have you had that experience?
I haven't had that happen yet. No, it's a shame. That's actually part of my plan for later today is practicing all the merging.
Well, we'll have to come back to this event
Yes.
page and give our own take once we get to dive into it a little deeper. What I do want the audience to take into account, though, is when you it's not really a merging, so I don't want to say the word merge, but when you marry these two, your local and your Google Plus account, one of the great features that you may want to keep in mind is that reviews carry over to the Google Plus profile. So if you have good reviews for your physicians or your practices, and you're trying to display that, this is a great way to carry that over into Google Plus, and I think that's the #1 takeaway of this article. All right, so let's move on to the next one.
Actually, before we do, I just wanted to note one last thing. Like I was saying, with multiple locations, if you do have currently a few pages set up and a few local pages set up, I might wait on the merge, on the marrying of your accounts because you might regret it. It's only because if you have that single location and you want to have 5 locations for that business, you just wait off for a little bit, wait till we figure it out. Maybe Google will realize that they need that extra feature, hopefully soon. But yes, sorry.
Definitely. Well, I think that Google Places, which became Google Local, and the way they automatically created accounts in general has always been confusing, continues to be confusing, and I'm continually disappointed with how hard it is to use. So I'm with you on that, and I hope that it continues to evolve into something more usable in the future.
probably my least favorite part was that verification process, the little postcards and everything. That's torture.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Like,
really is, especially when you're setting up the page for someone else and you have to wait for them to give you that number.
like, hey, is it set up yet? Well, did you get it in the mail? It's been 2 weeks, I guess. Yeah, you can't deliver anything like that. But anyway, continue.
All right, the next article I want to cover is with Reagan.
If I can mention something quickly before you go on, one more thing about the merging of the pages is, I don't know if you were aware, but you must be the owner of the page in order to merge them. If you simply manage the page, it won't allow you to do it. It must be the owner of the page that does that.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And the way I've gotten around that is I'm still the owner of the pages, even though the actual businesses, I set them up as managers, and I've always given everybody the option to take over the page, but there are a lot of things that you have to be the owner for, so that is a workaround if you're doing that as a third party. That's a good point. Thank you, Christopher. So the next article is by Reagan's Healthcare Communication, and it's 3 reasons why some hospitals are wildly successful online. They touch on a couple of topics, one of which I think is more important than the others. They talk about investing in your online presence, making sure that you look good to the people who are looking for you, not having duplicate pages, not having multiple accounts and confusing profiles, and that's important. But the second point I think is the most important that I wanted to focus on, and that was increasing the digital IQ of your marketing team. I think it's really important to invest in the continual education of your marketing team, whether you're doing it all yourself or you're interacting with a third party that helps you with your social presence. If you don't understand what's going on, if you don't pay attention and listen for what's news in social media, for example, which constantly talks about where it's heading and how people are using it, you miss out on having a team that can take advantage of the latest and greatest. Do you have anything to add to that, Andrew or Christopher?
I was actually a little worried to talk about healthcare because I don't exactly have social media and healthcare experience. But after going through the articles and everything, it seems to me it's just like everything else. I mean, it's these marketing principles. They apply to almost all industries. Sure, you have to pick and choose, certain tools, certain demographics, certain, strategies, I guess, but to meet your audience. But in the end, it's a business like any other, and it's just something you need to invest some time and some effort in. Your nephew is not going to run your hospital social media accounts. You need someone with some training, or do the training yourself. Learn. That's what you come in for.
Right. Well, it's healthcare is different not only in the privacy aspect, which is really, once you understand that concept, you can apply it across all the tools that one would use in marketing, communicating in healthcare. I think what specifically with healthcare and having a team that's educated, for example, when we're talking about educating patients and giving patients, empowering patients through information, helping them navigate a system so they can get the best outcomes, a lot of that is two-way conversation that has to be safe information that isn't patient-specific, but it's good information. And to understand new emerging technologies and new emerging tools such as Google Plus communities, to build communities where you can talk to groups of disease-specific patients, for example, or lifestyle-specific patients, is really important to stay up to date, because when you're trying to market your product and you're looking at a particular product line that you're marketing, you want to know the tools that are out there. You don't want to stick with Facebook when that might not be where your audience is, and move on into where people are going so that you can use the latest and greatest and you're not left behind while the other industries are ahead of you. But you're right, a lot of this does apply. It's just a matter of understanding how it applies specifically to healthcare, and educating your team is most important. Measurable marketing efforts, I thought that was an interesting thing to touch on, because I would think that most people are going to want to be able to prove to administration whether or not what they're doing is effective. Do you find that that everybody wants to measure, or do you find that that's something you have to really push to them?
Christopher, you want to take this one?
Sure. Measuring, it's true. A lot of clients want something tangible, something that they can, equate their dollars spent on. Unfortunately, not a lot of sales are made per se on social media. I've always maintained that the only two things that can be sold on social media are you and your brand. What social media does is it opens up doors. It creates more engagement. It invites conversation, and that in turn can lead to sales. It's the same thing outside of the digital world. You generally go to a store and buy stuff from somebody that you trust or somewhere you've been a few times, and that's much the same way with social media. It's a good way for you to get to know. Patients, for example, with regards to healthcare, getting to know the patients, becoming an expert in your field, letting people know that you're trustworthy and credible, and they come to you with their questions, and you're going to give some honest, authentic advice. Build that relationship with them through social media, and then when the time comes for them to make that step of making the purchase or making the commitment, they're going to be much more confident about it. So in terms of your return on investment, I still have a hard time putting a dollar figure on it, but in terms of relationships, if you could put a dollar figure on relationships, it'd be much easier to report, I guess.
I do think that there is something to be said for the pay-per-click. I think that it's not as important as it used to be. You can no longer pay for people to see a particular keyword that you want to be known for, and that's going to be the end-all and be-all. But it is a useful tool to have some form of a pay-per-click ads where you can measure whether or not that message is getting the audience that you want. And the analytics that you can get through various tools you'd have to pay for, I think that's valuable if you get the right tool. If you're just trying to look at it and see, well, how much traffic did I get, how many hits did I get, that's not going to get you anything. But if you can find out which pages people hovered on based on your campaign goals for that week, and you've been pushing a particular service, for example, and people are hitting the page related to that service, then you have a pretty good idea that what you're doing is working. But if you're getting hits from Indonesia or wherever they come from, that's really not doing any good, and it is good to look at that to some degree.
Right. What you were saying is exactly it. It's all about targeting, and also, don't worry about the number of hits to your page. You can always get more traffic to your page. That's where AdWords comes in. That's where, there's a lot of services that can generate leads, but where it comes in is you need to look at your conversion rates. Are you actually converting the people that you bring? Well, first, target the right people, but if you know you're targeting the right people, figure out why am I converting or not? And that's really push for that. It's about conversion in the end. You need to be able to take that random person who found your site and make them a customer. And a lot of people look instead at, well, what's my number of likes? What's my number of shares? And none of that matters. It's when someone gets to your page, that's when the game starts. That's when you need to be selling. So that's what you need to focus on.
Right. And I think a really good example, a reason why it's important to keep your staff informed, to understand all the different platforms out there, even if you're not using those platforms necessarily right off the bat, is that social media is not about pushing a message out. It's also about listening and discovering what your audience is interested in talking about, because when you can engage in those conversations, then you can start the dialogue two-way and you can start getting that exposure. And if you can train your employees to understand how to use and how to navigate those different platforms so that they can listen as much as they post and come back and say, this is a hot topic, or, this is an area we should touch on, or this is a real need, or this is something that people are talking about, that's valuable information to be able to bring back and react to. All right, let's switch to another article. We have about 10 more minutes before we open up the Hangout to everyone else, and I want to talk about Newton Hospital's puppy auction fiasco. Newton Hospital thought that they would have this lovely, cute auction for fundraising, and they had this litter of puppies that are just adorable, and they took a picture of them, and they announced that they were going to do a puppy auction, and this auction money would go toward their hospital services, their efforts there. And what they didn't expect is, rather than having a lot of people excited to participate in this and share the love, there was a backlash, and there were all kinds of calls for them to cease and desist because they were auctioning off these puppies like they were a pair of shoes, and it was really a nightmare. It was a campaign nightmare. You want to share some thoughts on what you think they did wrong?
You know, this is something they're so cute. They were so cute, but I realized, they were likely donated. It was from, I guess, a family involved with the hospital, maybe in some way. And the problem that I have with, though, why weren't the dogs spayed and neutered in the beginning? Like, to start with, there's so many dogs in shelters and paws and SPCA right now that for some family or couple to have a whole litter of dogs and then say, hey, we're gonna have a cute little hospital thing, like. It bothers me too. I hate to say. I'm sorry, they're cute. We should find them good homes. I'm not saying abandon the dogs because they're bad dog. It's not their fault. It's just it's a tough situation, and it's certainly not something. There are better ways to raise money for a hospital that could raise awareness for things that matter to the hospital and to the patients of the hospital. Yeah.
Christopher, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, anytime that you're launching a campaign and you're going to try to play on the emotions of your audience, because that was kind of the motivation behind that, was that the puppies were very cute, they were going to generate a lot of interest, a lot of conversation, but unfortunately when things like this start, there's that tipping point where it's either going to go really well or it's going to go really poorly. And I think in this instance, the momentum started with the negative as opposed to the positive, and that kind of snowballed and it grew and it grew. It did have the potential to do really well had it been, had it been taken well in the beginning. But that's something that we all need to look at when you're trying to put together a campaign. Always stop for a moment and think, what can possibly go wrong with this? Always be the devil's advocate. Think, sorry, excuse me. My worst enemy, what would they think about this? And then, you can kind of address it that way and walk yourself through it. That helps you, too, to prepare, a plan in the event that something does go south. But at the same time, it'll give you a good idea whether you're on the right track or not.
I couldn't agree with you more, and that was the point I wanted to make, is that I don't think that the people who were forming this campaign, forming this idea, anticipated all of the possibilities. Had they anticipated that there would be questions, and they addressed those questions up front, this would have never happened, because if you read through the article and some other articles on other sites that are related to it, they had a plan in place for a lot of this. They were going to do a vetting process. They were not going to auction these off to the first person that bid the highest, because who knows what some people do to dogs. Mm-hmm. But they had a plan in place, but they didn't communicate it because they didn't anticipate the questions that would come out. And so the lesson that I would like to emphasize it from my standpoint of this article is, no matter what the situation is, whether it's a fundraising event or it's a potential PR disaster that you think you successfully avoided, when you have good information that gives a better picture of the situation and puts you in a better light, put that information out proactively, so that if something happens down the road, that information is already out there, that you don't have to come after the fact and say, oh, wait a minute, here's my argument against it. You've already put that out there, and when people Google it, it's already there to be found, and you can say, well, yeah, we mentioned that before. So it puts you in a whole different light. So anticipate is the message I would like to stress there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, let's see what else we have here. We have about 7 minutes, and there isn't a whole lot that we can cover. I don't want to cover all the articles. I did share a really nice infographic. I don't think that it's worth explaining here, because what I really put that out there for was more for having a general idea of why social is important, because there are still some hospitals and practices that are having to really argue to put time in, and so I wanted to put that out there just because I thought it kind of gives some basic information of 80% of people searching for health care and that sort of thing. So we're not going to talk a lot about that. There was also Some of the brief news I just want to throw out there. Helpouts. This probably won't apply to most of you, but if any of you have physicians that are starting to use helpouts to provide medical help, and there are some out there. I saw a post by Kathy Nieder that had just said, "Yay! I got through the red tape. I'm going to be a help out provider." So, and there is a way to do that securely as a physician. There is a new, it's not a new feature, but it's a feature that I didn't know about until recently, that you can offer your audience their first help out for free. Now, that may not make sense to most people when you're talking about physicians offering services, but if you have a service out there where people can come and meet the physician or meet the staff or ask questions, is your service right for me? Can you give me the medical care I need based on my conditions? A lot of times physicians already give those consultations free, but patients don't realize it. So you can use this as a way to take advantage of that and offer it through a mobile app where people can find you and not be afraid to reach out and ask you a question, and it might just generate a new lead. I also want to mention that specifically in elective surgeries, that this might be a really good intro to get people in there. For example, for plastic surgeons, if someone wants to know, well, what does this entail, or what is it going to run me? I know you're not going to give exact prices, but to be able to take away that "what's it going to cost me just to talk to you" question might be really beneficial to your practice. So it's worth mentioning here. Are you familiar with helpouts, Andrew?
I was actually one of the first, one of the leaders, I guess. I don't know what the term would be. They basically asked me to create a help out all the way in the beginning, and I went through the process. I actually got somewhat annoyed because of they were kind of picking and choosing as to what they weren't sure what they wanted help outs to be yet, I think was the main problem, and so I had one that was managing and basically going through Google Plus features and kind of showing you how you can adjust your brand page to, build a better brand on Google Plus. And they had removed that one, and they were saying that because they don't want people to give Google Plus advice, but then I saw there were 5 other people that still had theirs up, which kind of bothered me, and at the time there were people that had more followers than I did, and I don't know. So I kind of took that the wrong way and kind of stepped back from helpouts. The other reason was that once you connect with a client, I didn't see the reason to give Google 50%, or 25 to 50% of the fee every single time. Once I connect with the client, I can just do a one-on-one hangout with them myself. So it's I don't know. I'm still not sure what I feel about helpouts. As you can tell, it's
a great way to generate new leads, and I think in the healthcare industry, what's nice about it is a lot of cases, the services that helpouts lend themselves to in healthcare are services that normally would be given away for free anyway, because it not only helps the patient navigate the system, but
Google 50%, or 25 to 50% of the fee.
Mark, can you mute?
Fine, I can just do a one-on-one hangout with them.
Hold on, we're having a. There we go. We had some of the guests.
Helpouts, as you can tell. Don't unmute.
I think in the healthcare industry, what's nice about it is a lot of. There we go. Okay, I had to mute Mark. I couldn't. He's got it playing, and his echo is coming out. So we'll get to that later. But it is nice to be able to offer the helpouts so that we can get patients navigated through the system, because I think that's important.
So this is just like a free. It's just basically anyone new you connect with, you get one free help out, or.
Yes. The way the feature works is if you do charge for help outs, the first help out for a new visitor is free. So it's kind of like having an introduction visit.
Yeah.
But in some cases in healthcare, people are providing that service for free anyway. But if you aren't, then that's a great way to get a new patient to come in and at least decide if you're a possibility for them. So I think that's an interesting thing to at least consider.
They also have the new, there's a Hangout button. You can now put a Hangout button on your website so that someone can just call you right away from a Hangout. Obviously, for a larger trafficked website, that's not necessarily an option. You don't want your Google, Hangout's blowing up every minute, but for a smaller site, for a consultant, for something like that, like, hey, jump on in, ask me questions. I think it's fantastic, and but again, that shows me kind of how the help outs it can be gone around. There's other ways, but I like for healthcare professionals, lawyers, things like that. It can offer that layer of protection from that random person who you don't know, instead of having open Hangout options and all that. It's nice. I like it.
Yep. I have posted the Hangout link on the event page. If you're watching live and you'd like to join the discussion, it is time to join now. We have one person who's joined us. I do ask, try to close the original video that you're watching once you join the Hangout, or you're going to get an echo feedback and I'll have to mute you. So look for that link. I have posted it on the event page, and we have, you can go ahead and join in. The other things I want to mention very quickly is they're just kind of, oh, by the ways. Pinterest launched a bug bounty program. Pinterest has asked all of its users, anytime you find a bug, you bring it to us. And they've created some incentives to do that. The reason I want to mention this is not that I want you to go out and search for bugs on Pinterest, but imagine how many people were driven to really comb through Pinterest because of this incentive to find bugs. What if that were applied to patient portals? What if there was a reason for you to ask patients to specifically go to a patient portal, whether it was we've just designed one and we want to see if it can be broken, check it out and give us your feedback, or whatever you can imagine. Is there something similar to Pinterest's brilliant campaign for a bug bounty that you can use to drive patients into that private portal? Food for thought. One last thing I want to mention, as we've got people joining in, hopefully we're going to have a couple more people. We've got a couple that have joined us, is Facebook. This is a little creepy. Most of you know I'm not a real Facebook fan to begin with. I'm both intrigued and creeped out by this, but Facebook claims that they are going to start using their app to listen to what you're doing to get a better picture of who you are, whether it's music you're listening to, surrounding noises. It's kind of creepy. If you haven't heard of this, you might want to check out the link that I've shared on the event page. Give me your thoughts on it. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it seems very strange because what it does is it takes the background noises, things that are around you, and it basically adjusts your mood, or it sets your mood based on the background sounds. Now they're saying what the problem with this is, of course, there may be conversations in the background that aren't appropriate to your situation, and there's lots of definitely privacy concerns. I'm with you. I was definitely creeped out by that.
Yeah. I'm also, I don't know how many people know this, but I'm also a Glass Explorer, Google Glass Explorer, which is a new wearable technology right above the eye. And there are a lot of questions about privacy that are not even merited with Google Glass, because it's pretty obvious when you're trying to record something or you're taking a picture, it's not something you can hide. But when I compare that to what Facebook is doing, there is no comparison. That is so creepy and over the line for me.
So now if Facebook can hear what's going on in the background, can then, so if you're in a restaurant, in a coffee bar, and something like that, so are they also then listening to everyone else around you? Just like a restaurant has banned Google Glass, you think the restaurant's going to start banning Facebook it's just a bad move. It bothers me. It might be the reason I finally delete my account. If this is true, I don't really know too much about this situation. It's creepy. I don't like it. They can see what I click on. I give them that. I think that's enough.
Yeah, well, I didn't even give them that. I deleted my account 2 years ago, and I haven't looked back. So, Scott, let's get you into the conversation. You've joined us. We lost Mark somehow. Mark, if you come back in, you're welcome to come in. Anybody that wants to join us and join this conversation for the last 15 minutes. What are your thoughts, Scott? What have you heard that was of interest to you today?
Oh my gosh, almost everything was of interest to me. One of the things just before the show started, I started to scan some of your articles, and I was really interested. There was one that was an infographic, and I saw an animation at the bottom, and I thought, oh well, that's part of the article, and I clicked on it, and it was an ad for McDonald's.
We know what you do based on those custom ads.
So I went back to it later, and it was a different ad, so they were targeting me. And I also thought it was interesting because the ad was showing someone who was running and jogging, and that's really helpful. And then they said, and afterwards, there's a cup of coffee with your name on it. And so they showed the cup of coffee, but they also showed the hamburger. They showed the hamburger, but they didn't say a word about the hamburger.
Well, that's interesting. So someone has some great ideas of how to target people that are not typical McDonald's customers and find a way to bring you in. So you must be somewhat athletic or health related that they've picked up on with your searches.
Well, you know, they were listening in on my Facebook page.
I don't know how many people are going to delete that Facebook app now.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a result of this conversation with you and Andrew and Chris, I'm going to delete my Facebook account. I don't use it, and you know, it didn't occur to me that I could delete it, and I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, most people, I don't think they ever stop to think, hey, geez, I can actually delete this. Life goes on without this Facebook page. I mean, I'll be honest, I have probably 30 friends. I've had my account for years, but I legitimately have 30 friends. And, you know, Andrew's one of them. They're people that I can actually, if I pass on the street, I can say, you know, yeah, I saw your post on Facebook, because they're really my friends. A lot of businesses and a lot of people, you know, when they get on the Facebook bandwagon, they look past that. They just thought, oh, you know, I'm Mr. or Mrs. Popularity. Look at all these people like me. All these people are my friends. But, you know, when it came down, for example, when Facebook started limiting your reach, then it really came clear that, you know, maybe these people don't really like my business, and maybe these people aren't really my friends. Now you have to pay for friends.
Yeah, I'm wondering for our hospitals and healthcare providers, you know, what is a profile for them to have a Facebook, and when should they not have a Facebook? And should they consider deleting their Facebook? When should they consider deleting a Facebook account that they might have?
Well, that's interesting that you would raise that question, Scott, because I've had some conversations with people who have hospital and practice pages on Facebook, and some of them have deleted their pages, but they've deleted their pages because they didn't have control over what showed up on them. That was their big concern. But you're right. It's getting to the point where Facebook has lost touch with who their customer is, and they're so busy selling ads that they've forgotten who brought them into being.
I wonder if someone doesn't have a robust enough, you know, Facebook presence, if there could actually be more harm than help, because someone would go to it to try and vet them and see that nobody's following them and they don't post anything. Well, you know, to heck with them, I'm going to go to someone else. And if they didn't have a Facebook, then there would be no harm. Or would there be that there would be harm by virtue of not being socially connected that way?
Don't have a Facebook page, and all of a sudden you're that weirdo in society. You remember one of the last shootings? It was oh, well, he didn't have a Facebook page. I go, what the hell? That's not a that's not a reason to think someone's crazy. That's a perfectly normal response to a lousy service. Sorry, but yeah.
I mean, people will forgive us. They will realize that we have drunk the G+ Kool-Aid.
Well, since we're on the topic of Facebook, one of the other articles that I posted there is that Facebook has said that they're not going to remove third-party posts, but they're definitely going to dial them down. And I don't think that this is new. I think Facebook has been doing this for a while. I just think that they're admitting they're doing it now. So when you're trying to use management software like Hootsuite and some of these other auto posts, even if you're using them responsibly and selectively posting to the different sites, but still timing it so that you hit your target timer, you're going to be penalized. And I think it's not just going to be Facebook. I think this is a trend that's going to start coming across all of the social sites, where they're going to put priority on live posts versus scheduled posts. You agree?
That is 100% true. We have a client that happened to. We were using, I probably shouldn't say what the third-party client was, but we were using one to schedule posts quite regularly. We had different, because by the nature of this company, there were different time zones, there were different people to contact. We couldn't do it, so we used the software. Within a very short period of time, the rankings dropped significantly. Even stuff like the reach was noticeably down, and it felt just like that. It felt just like, okay, well, the only thing that we've changed is that we've got this third-party provider doing it, whereas before we just had lots of staff members that were trying to hit all the time zones as best we could. We'd missed some. But, when we sat back and said, okay, well, what's caused this? The only thing we could come up with was we had used the third-party provider to schedule our posts. So, but of course, I had no legitimate proof. I have no concrete proof to say that was it. But in my mind, I'm in 100% agreement on that there's definitely a small penalty of some sort.
Well, and I think.
Sorry, I wanted to add. I also agree with you, Kathy. I do think that the other social networks will, if not already, will be optimizing for this. I mean, they want real time. I mean, they want people on here, not just broadcasting to the platform, but actually using it. And I think it's an important justification. It's fine. I'm happy with it.
I am happy with it.
One of those cars going by with a speaker on the roof, just driving down the road, just broadcasting the message. I mean, there's no personalization there.
Well, I think this gets right back to where Google is trying to take us. The next generation of social interaction has a lot to do with true, authentic engagement for the purpose of building trust and reputation and authority. And you can't do that when you're posting things on a time schedule. Although you have to use it sometimes. Sometimes you just have to if you're going to be posting in different time zones. But it really does drive home that you cannot have someone else posting something in an automated fashion and call that a social presence, because it simply isn't.
I think we need a bit of, and Ben Fisher, I think, was the one that coined this term, at least in my mind, because he was the first one I heard using it. I know I did this week's Dustin. But as far as user modification, damn, there was a third word. Anyway, so basically, user behavior modification, that's the one. So I think that on social media, we do need a massive shift. This whole push for scheduling posts, for Twitter, for repeating the same thing 4 times in a day because you want to broadcast it, I think it's a complete waste of time, waste of resources. It creates noise. What I call noise is repeat posts, basically posts that don't have to be there. It's already there. The information is out there. Same as a blog post that gets regurgitated or spun. It's completely useless. You don't do anything new. There's no point to it. So with social media, we need to teach people to follow better. Add people to lists on Twitter and follow all of their tweets to motivate them not to broadcast at Twitter at 3, 6, 9, 12. Just have them post the content, and that's it. It's just, if it's good content, it gets seen. If it's bad content, it disappears. I don't know. I feel like there's just an easier way we can do this. Like we're overcomplicating it for ourselves. But that was my little rant. Sorry.
Well, Mark, you have been very quiet today. You've joined us, but you haven't said anything. And I know that you have some thoughts here. Would you like to chime in on any of this?
Yeah, I do. It's a fascinating conversation, and I'm not going to go on I won't get on my soapbox, but I think that from a overall social media perspective, I don't care if it's Google+, Facebook, Twitter, About Me, wherever, I found that from a technology standpoint, we're fairly advanced in terms of our ability to put ourselves out there electronically and connect. But as a society and culture, we're actually quite immature in our understanding of what the real relationship is. What I see ongoing right now is, and I follow my Twitter account carefully and all my other accounts, is basically these are big echo chambers. And so the goal seems to be right now, just get as many followers as you can, get as many friends as you can, get as many people in your circle as you can. But it's nice to see that there are discussions starting right now about how we can really leverage that relationship instead of just pumping up your numbers. So I still think we're going to have a ways to go, and I think people like us right now talking about this is going to be how we evolve more as a culture. So there's my little rant.
It's interesting that you bring this up, because one of the articles I didn't mention that I did post on the event page is a change that LinkedIn is doing that I found I was not too happy with. And it is a new feature where LinkedIn is kind of falling in line with all the other social sites which want to rank the popularity of people, compare you against other people in your industry and in your network so that you know where you are, basically the clout of LinkedIn. And you know, LinkedIn was one of those untouched places where you were simply a professional with expertise. You weren't the only one with that expertise, but you put yourself out there and you displayed your expertise and you participated in conversations, and it was purely for the purpose of your professional discussion, learning, and sharing. To have LinkedIn even do it now, it tells me that some social sites don't get it, that it's not about how many numbers you have and how many people are giving you attaboys, but it really is about what's unique about you and what you have to share and how well you engage on one-on-one.
Could it be, does anybody here have any thoughts on the fact that as social media sites try to quantify popularity, it's part of a larger downstream plan to find a way to monetize it?
I mean, most definitely. They have the Clout. I mean, if you look at how Clout has been doing it, they basically have what's called the Clout perk. And they give a special gift or something, you know, a service, a gift, anything to someone in the hopes that they will then tweet about it. You know, they don't say you have to tweet about this to get this perk. You get the perk, and then, you know, if you remember to tweet about it, they'll you know, they're happy about it. And it's kind of an ongoing experiment, so to speak. I really don't think it does very well for anyone. You know, Red Bull had a huge push. I can't see that me gaming Clout for the Red Bull K to get into an event really helps them in any way. You know, I admit it. I definitely gamed their system a little bit. It was very easy to do so, and I saw other people doing it. So I thought, well, why do they get to do it and I can't? It's when you play with numbers, that's what inevitably is going to happen. Is you're going to get people who want to game the system. You see that on Google Plus with the rolling circle shares, and it's a tough thing to do. You can't quantify an or you can't make objective a subjective number like influence. It's tough to rank and rate that. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, so I think I kind of went off on a tangent there, but.
Go ahead, Mark.
No, I think this is a fascinating topic because, and I'll use your LinkedIn as an example. You know, I look at my profile on LinkedIn and it tells me that I'm on the top 98% or whatever. If I was a brand new LinkedIn user, would I pay additional to make sure my profile reached the top quartile? Yeah, probably, you know, maybe if someone was into power networking. So I think ultimately we are pushing this this subjective number of quantity into looking for a way to monetize it, and I think we're going to see more of that.
Well, I think that even happens in Google Plus because for some of the features like the Plus Post ads that business pages can take advantage of where they turn engagement conversations about their product into ads, those can only be used once you have so many followers on your page. So I think we're already beginning to see that, and that's a really good point, Mark. And I'm going to use that as our last comment as we wrap up today's What's News in Healthcare Social Media, because it is a quarter till the hour, and we've already gone well past our 45-minute discussion, and I could go another 15 minutes easily. So I want to thank all of you for joining me for the discussion, Andrew and Christopher of Wheel Media, and Mark Ackley and Scott Scowcroft, and any of the rest of you who are making comments on the event page. You are making this what it is today. So have a wonderful rest of the week. This is Kathy Brown of Brown Knows Social Media signing off for What's News in Healthcare Social Media.